Hello, everyone. Today we'll be talking about the institutional theory of financial inclusion. This is a very big theory, very big one. The institutional theory of financial inclusion argues that there are two factors that actually affect financial inclusion, and these factors are formal institutions and informal institutions. The formal institutions are policies of government, rules, regulations that are issued by institutions, by, for example, the Consumer Protection Institution, legal institutions, political institutions, the police, banks, the rules that banks put in place to sort of help customers. And all these policies, rules, regulations that are issued by formal institutions, institutions that are recognized by law, can actually incentivize, can encourage people to access financial services, or it can actually discourage them from accessing financial services. Now, informal institutions are basically traditions, belief systems, are, norms, social norms that are unwritten but are passed on from generations to generations that people hold very dear to themselves and that sort of influence them to patronize banks and fintech providers and encourage them to use financial services, or it can actually discourage them. And I'll give an example of informal institutions. For example, think about a family living in the countryside, right? And they have a grandfather who never liked banks, and the grandfather passed on the belief system of distrust in banks, passed that on to his children, and the child passes it on to their grandchildren. And what you see happen is that, the family line, nobody believes in banks, nobody wants to patronize banks, and these people will remain financially excluded. This is an example of how informal institutions increase financial exclusion. In other words, it discourages people from accessing financial institutions. And it could also be the other way around, right? So you could have people, communities, villages that actually have traditions that are positive towards financial institutions, right? So when that's the case, then you would see a lot of people in the countryside, in rural areas, patronizing banks, patronizing microfinance institutions, patronizing digital apps, and all that. So, this is basically an example of how informal institutions can actually influence people to use financial services. The institutional theory of financial inclusion argues that formal and informal institutions that already exist can influence progress towards financial inclusion. It can motivate people to use financial services, or it can discourage them from using financial services. It can encourage them to participate in the formal financial sector, or it can discourage them from actually participating in the financial system. And that's it, guys. See you in the next episode. Thank you.